this off to donuts and coffee.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me here. I teach in the School of Communication and Multimedia Studies. Our labs are down in Davie. And they did mention to me, or they told us to say something unusual about our lives that is not about our research to begin with. So I wanted to show you, my wife and I are dance instructors, and we compete. And so I'm going to show you a competition of us dancing Carolina Shag in Georgia. So let me go ahead and play that. So Carolina Shag is, we've been teaching for like 15 years, different kinds of dances. And I was at the University of South Carolina before I came here, and Carolina Shag is the state dance and of both North and South Carolina. So we learned it when we were there, and then we started competing and teaching it. So anyway, it's a lot of fun. Probably you haven't seen today's faculty. And it is a big scene in South Carolina. Okay. Testing, testing, testing. Okay. All right, so mainly what I'm going to use here is my website, tophermaraffi.com, to talk about some of the projects that we're doing down in our Media Technology and Entertainment MFA program and our Film, Video, and New Media BA program. That's the areas that I teach in down there with the other faculty in the multimedia production area. So we basically do a lot of things. We design experiences for various types of emerging technologies. We use game engines, we use VR, AR headsets, and we do film, we do animation, and some of the projects are more science-oriented. They're all very interdisciplinary projects that have sometimes quite a few researchers on them. For instance, this project is for a historical site in South Carolina. It's called Mitchellville, and I started this project actually when I was at the University of South Carolina, and Mitchellville was the first freedmen's town during the Civil War. And so freedmen were freed slaves from the South Carolina area as the Union Army would take areas. They were called freedmen. There was a whole Freedmen's Bureau set up for them, and then there was something called the Port Royal Experiment, which was to let them govern their own towns and set up a town for them, and Mitchellville was the very first one on Hilton Head Island on the coast of South Carolina in what's called Beaufort County. And Beaufort County was the center of all of that stuff, and that's where actually I taught at USC Beaufort. And so there's a lot of history around there. And the Penn Center is there, which is the place that Martin Luther King wrote his "I Have a Dream" speech, and the first African-American school was there. And so there was a lot of stuff going on because it was the center of the Union Army's Southern campaign. And they took it early in the war, and then they went from there. And so what we're doing is an augmented reality app for the site and both a free app that you can use with your phone, and then we're also researching how we can do this with the Magic Leap headsets. Magic Leap is a local company. It's a tech company that's backed by Google that makes the headsets that you actually can see where you are at. It's a what they call spatial computing, where it maps the entire area around you, and it can then place digital characters and objects into that environment and actually place things behind, like a chair. I can have a character come up from behind the chair, which is different than when you use your phone, where it's kind of just plastered on the camera feed of your phone. So we're experimenting with all these new technologies to create something that has a history focus, has a culture focus. So this is also a Gullah Geechee heritage site. There's some amazing stories that have to do with this whole area. Right now in my pre-production courses, I teach pre-production for film, animation, and games, and my undergraduate students have been working with my graduate students to create some of these scenes, the pre-production visualization for some of the scenes that we would put onto the site. And one of them is Harriet Tubman, a very famous person who was part of the Underground Railroad. There's a new movie out. It's a great movie if you haven't seen it. It's out at theaters right now. It's an inspiring story, and she was there at Mitchellville. She was in that area. She led what was called the Combahee River Raids, where they freed like 740 slaves, I believe it was, or something like that. And so we're sort of storyboarding that out and creating models. And it was the place where the first reading of the Emancipation Proclamation to the first black troops was there as well. So we're modeling these different characters who will be virtual characters and who will be able to interact with you in these scenes. Right now, some of these are graduate and some of them are undergraduate. This is like an undergraduate storyboard for the Harriet Tubman scene. This is a model created by a graduate student. This one also by another MFA graduate student. So one of the things that we're trying to do with this, I cross-list my courses so that we can work on real-world research projects like this with, and have the graduate students mentor the undergraduate students. We do have an NEH grant in that we're trying to get, a multi-year grant. We have like 16 researchers from 4 different universities on it for this project. We're also doing virtual production. We have a new virtual production setup, and it's really the future of filmmaking, where you use an iPad to actually film someone in a motion capture suit, and it goes directly into a game engine and puts their movement on the 3D character, so that in real time the director can actually see what's going on and know what to shoot again if it didn't work out right. And you can see us doing that here in my classroom. And again, some of these are undergraduate and some of them are graduate students. Here's actually a video of them. How do you turn up the volume a little bit? Is there a knob or something here? Okay. Anyway, here we're shooting Harriet Tubman leading some people. Oh yeah. And it's going directly onto the character. And we've got some grants in, some tech fees to get more suits so that we can have multiple actors interacting together in this directly into the game environment. And then this is what the rendered, this is just a test of the rendered scene of what the character actually looks like in that game environment. It's a little dark, but this is the real-time game environment that the character is in. And the person with the suit on is driving these motions. So this kind of new technology, I mean, it's being used for everything now, and we're sort of, it's cutting edge. We're adopting it for these different educational projects. We have other projects going on. We have something called Homebound, which is a VR project where it's basically two graduate students are meeting with immigration lawyers that they know to get stories of undocumented immigrants who have crossed the border, and taking those stories and making them into an experience where you will be able to walk across the desert at night and experience that. This is the research poster that they had in Research Day last year on the project, and some of the assets that they've created for the project, like the models and things. This is the coyote and them doing the motion capture and stuff. We'll use the virtual production for this as well. And then some of the scenes from the desert, and here's them actually presenting that. And so it starts out in a scene where you're in the person's apartment, and you're going to find different things that sort of mean something to them. You're going to find a photograph of something that's going to jog a memory, and when you drop that photograph, it's going to take you into the experience that you're in the desert. And there's a couple of different environments that they've created, one with the coyote here, and another one where hiding in a cave. And so the idea with these projects is to design an experience that will create empathy for this topic and discussion for this topic, using entertainment, an entertainment or an edutainment approach. So doing it at a level which is has quality animation that will make you really feel like you're in those environments. And they might not be completely realistic, they might be stylized, but will have an effect. We have other funded research projects that we're doing with computer science and engineering on a car driving game, so that we can use actually eye tracking to see where people are looking when they're driving and how are they pressing on the pedal, get all the data from that, and then give that to the computer scientists working on autonomous cars so that they can design features that correspond with what good drivers do when they're maneuvering their vehicles. So we're working on that project. We got a college seed grant for that. We're working on projects like a Magic Murder Mystery Theater game with the Magic Leap headset, where it's in the tradition of mass theater, and multiple people wearing Magic Leap headsets they'll find a dead body on the floor, a virtual dead body on the floor, and they're different characters. They have masks, animated digital masks over the headset, so you don't see someone with a headset, you see someone with a character, and maybe some props on their bodies, and they play that part, and it tells them what lines to read, just like you were in a comedy mystery theater piece. So it's kind of, it's what I call performatology, of taking theater arts and putting it into this new medium. And so we're creating right now, I have grad students working on like a black light flashlight. So you're actually in the room with the Magic Leap headset, but you see a body there, and then you might be the detective and have a black light flashlight where you're looking for the blood and you're following the bloody footprints or handprints or something to a clue, and then it's going to help you to solve the murder mystery. We have other people working on escape rooms in the Cairo the temple, or the pyramid, the Giza pyramid. So they're doing an escape room from that. This particular project has to do again with eye tracking, and we're working with philosophy professor Richard Schusterman on his Soma aesthetics idea, which he's been actually doing research with since the 90s, and applying that to virtual reality. And this one's a particular one is meditative walking through a sort of a natural environment, which is a virtual environment. It's all virtual. But when people go into VR, they get something called VR motion sickness, because you usually can't see your body. And so you feel like you're walking, but you don't see anything. You don't experience the actual walking. So you get motion sickness. And so we're working on that problem using both a philosophy approach and also a performatology approach, where we try to make you feel and hear through the media like you're walking. So hearing your limbs, like enhancing the sound, like if you're walking with a coat on, a leather coat, or some kind of outdoor coat, you hear it, right? You hear your steps hitting the ground. And when you're doing this kind of meditative walking, it actually becomes louder. So we're going to use eye tracking to sort of, as you focus in your eyes into a little area while you're walking, that the actual sounds of your walking and the view of your body moving, it's a virtual body, will actually be enhanced. And that comes from performing arts. The idea that performing artists don't really actually, they're not natural in their movement. They actually exaggerate a lot, especially in theater, where you're performing to the back of the house. So a lot of traditional theater practices exaggerate, and we're going to put that, we're actually putting that into VR to try and work on this problem. Things like virtual galleries that have to do with maybe climate change is another project. And so I have students in all my classes do research posters, so we had quite a few at last research day, both undergrad and graduate. And we do more traditional game stuff too as well. Like I have a whole series of game courses and animation courses where, again, we're using motion capture and modeling all the game characters out and creating the environments. And these are just different scenes from an animation for games class. So if you're interested in this kind of research, what we do is we really design the experiences, right? And we're using all kinds of different mediums for that. We might use 360 video, VR, augmented reality on a phone, or spatial computing in the Magic Leap headset, or we might just do a traditional game or film or animation. It depends on the project, but as far as the content goes, sometimes we have our own content, but a lot of times we don't, right? So if it's something on climate change, then we're going to try to produce something that looks good, will engage whoever's going to be experiencing it in the most intense way possible to give that educational experience. But the climate change part, we're not climate change researchers. We need to work with the climate change researchers to do that. The other thing that we have going on, which is we just put in a big IMLS grant for, is we partner with the Museum of Discovery and Science. And in the summers, we have been doing a 3-week course for their aptitude high school interns. And so they come up here to Engineering East, and we have computer engineering faculty as well as 2 SCMS faculty. And we teach them how to create augmented reality apps. And they learn how to, this last summer, they learned how to create research posters for different topics on habitat, or they have a plane exhibit at the museum. And so they would create these different posters and then make them into augmented reality experiences by holding up your phone to them, and then you can see some video that they created, some animation that they created on those topics. And we're kind of doing that with all our research posters now, giving them this augmented reality layer. But this has been very successful, and so we just put in a new grant to expand this to year-round type of interaction with them, so that we actually have one of our grad students and an undergrad intern working with the aptitude interns during the school year to get them to where they design projects and they're in teams and they're competing. And then we choose at the end of the year, the Museum of Discovery and Science staff and faculty choose a couple of projects to take into the summer 3-week intensive to a final museum exhibit level project that the museum can actually put into out on the floor and have people interact with. And so it's great for us because it gives us research into how to create more engaging museum exhibits using extended reality technology. And it's great for them because their students are getting this knowledge through sort of from grad students, faculty, and undergraduate mentors. So there's all these levels of education going on. And then they also get some new exhibits, the museum, that they can actually put out and see if they're more engaging. So those are the kind of things that we're doing, and we love collaborating with other areas that might want to use these kind of new technologies but don't know how, and have some really cool research projects that you want to do, and we can sort of facilitate that. And we can put a graduate student, we can put in a grant or something and get the technology and fund a graduate student to work on that. And also, if you're a student, if you're interested in doing games or extended reality or any of that, we have a bunch of new classes that we're running now. Actually, I have a flyer that I can pass around that that we're signing up people for some classes now on immersive XR for games and games in VR. It's new, so I can't remember the name of the course, but it's on the paper there.
Any questions?
Do you happen to need any librarians?
We always need librarians.
How do we find out more to see if we're a good match?
Yeah, just contact me. I'll give you my card, and we can talk. I also teach a video game studies course, so I'm using quite a few books for that, text for that. But we always need resources, especially because all this stuff is new, like new. There are no textbooks on it. So we have to always be looking at what's the new literature coming out, and in some cases we don't have any literature. We're just doing the research on our own.
So are there jobs for students who are learning this kind of stuff?
Absolutely, yeah. So this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. You know, if you take, I mean, it's entertainment, right? And all of entertainment is kind of converging. So film, games, animation, it's all coming together in real-world productions. You know, all the big directors out there, even if they're not doing Avengers, if they're doing Avengers, they're definitely using this. But even if they're not doing Avengers, they're using this technology. They're using virtual production. They're doing animation that you can't even tell is animation for a lot of the commercials out there. Most of the car commercials are not real. So they're using game engines for all of these things. So there's a lot of jobs in this area. Any other questions? Yes.
By any chance, do you have any students from computer science background with graduate from graduate school, or is it only for undergrads? Maybe I missed this.
So we're in Davie. So a lot of students don't want to drive down to Davie. We're working on that, trying to create, and there's the new sandbox and VR portal that's going to be opening up in the library up here, and we're going to try to create some kind of distance connection between those two places and have our students up there working with some of the computer engineering and science students in that facility. And I've been doing things with faculty who have some grad students working on projects. But that's something we're still building up. Our Media Technology and Entertainment degree program, MFA degree program, actually started as a collaboration between computer science and School of Communication and Multimedia Studies. And I have a degree in computer science as well as digital arts and new media. So I can kind of bridge that gap a little bit and have been trying to build that up. So we would like to have AI faculty in computer science working with us on some of these projects, because all of these projects have like intelligent tour guides and intelligent docents for the museum who we want to be able to have interact with you life-size, standing there to tell you about an exhibit and look you in the eye. So all the eye tracking and stuff, and you know, we're using state machines, but we want to use even more sophisticated AI to make that happen. And we're going to need the computer science graduate students for that. Yeah. Thank you.